What's up, everybody? Welcome to Masterclass. Today's Masterclass is going to be on boundary setting, why you have to respect yourself before other people will respect you. I wanted to hit record because we did start talking about something. And one of the things that we started talking about was the fact that when other people feel emotions, sometimes they can bring something out of us. Now, people don't like to use the word trigger because that word has all these connotations now attached to it where we think that it's something necessarily negative. It's not. It's just what is it that is going to start that little point, that little bit of emotion, that little bit of feeling to come out of you? And that could be the fact that you let something affect you that maybe it shouldn't, or if something does affect you, why is it happening? What can you change? What can you start looking at a little bit differently to make sure that number one, it doesn't bring you to that same level anymore, or number two, you find a way to position it as an added value to see where you can make some changes and maybe show up a little bit differently and maybe do something a little bit differently to make sure that the next time something like that happens, it's not crossing any boundaries, it's not triggering you in any way, it's actually something that you can positively influence back. So we're going to dive into the classes here. Let me bring up the presentation. So I'm sharing my screen.
I can't point at your ear.
All right.
Or something.
How about now?
God.
Nice.
You're back. There we go.
I'm like, why is Eric calling me? All right, how long was that going on for? The whole thing?
Pretty much,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
my
my fault because I finally joined one of these sessions.
no. All right, let me wind up again. All right, so all right, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
All
can hear
right,
you.
cool. So we're talking about boundaries. We're trying to understand what boundaries are. Boundaries are setting rules for yourself that you are going to make sure are in a way non-negotiable, meaning that it is part of your core values and principles. We talked about core values and principles last week. You're going to notice that a lot of what we talk about intertwines with each other. Because when you understand that you need to operate from your core values and your principles, you can start defining boundaries of where you won't allow yourself to bend. And a boundary might be something that you self-impose on yourself, or it might be something that you self-impose on other people in their relationship with you. So boundaries don't have a clear cut, this is the way that I operate for myself. It's about what kind of rules do you have in place for yourself and other people, meaning that you don't allow other people to cross those boundaries because you have rules for your place, or you don't allow yourself to cross these boundaries because you have rules for yourself as well. And a boundary that you can establish is I am going to make sure that I get to bed on time. And when you start to bend on that boundary, when you start to stay up late and have that drink of alcohol, you're violating your own boundaries. And when people see that, it allows them to violate your boundaries as well. Because if you have friends or loved ones that you keep telling that, you know what, I work out every day and I need to be healthy, but they see you not following in line with those boundaries that you said you set for yourself, well, they are not going to respect those boundaries. Another boundary that you could have is, for example, setting a time boundary where you're not going to allow yourself to stay up late on certain days of the week. But when you don't follow your own boundary, it's very hard for other people to want to respect or even understand that boundary. Boundaries in one way, shape, or form are you respecting yourself and you following through what you said you were going to do by operating from your core values and principles. I'm sure you guys can tell the theme that a lot of the things that we talk about are actually intertwined with each other. We talked about core values and principles. We talked about boundaries. One of the things we're going to be talking about next week is understanding how we operate from not just our boundaries and our core set of values and principles, but how we can make sure that we are scheduling our life properly and having timelines and having measurable goals and having KPIs of key performance indicators for ourselves to make sure you're making progress, because you're in this program and your fitness goal might not be to get 3 to 5 workouts a week. It might be to be able to do a 30-minute walk, because right now that's what you're struggling with. So there's a lot of things that tie in with each other in this program. And that's the beauty of it, because it's much more than just a fitness program. It's about progressively becoming better and better and better. And when we understand our limits, it helps us communicate our needs clearly and respectfully to other people. One of the things that I'm actively working on is setting some boundaries for myself, because I realized when I started looking at myself, because I went through a coaching program and I'm going through a coaching program, is that I didn't have any boundaries. That because of the military, I thought that I always had to be available. I sold this program to you guys with the idea, the concept that I'm always available to you. And to be honest, it does both of us a disservice, because it sets the standard of you thinking that you can reach out to me at 2 a.m. and it sets the negative standard of you thinking that it's okay to reach out to somebody at 2 a.m. Now, if it's an emergency, don't get me wrong. If you call me twice, the phone call will go through and I will answer. But I'm doing you a disservice if I am teaching you the idea that we need to always be accessible to someone, that we need to always answer phone calls. So one of the things I'm actively working on is setting some boundaries, not just with you guys, but with everyone in my life. I'm also establishing times where there are days where I am intentionally deep diving into you guys. Today, I took time off of my work, my job. I took the whole day off. I dropped my time because I need to set some boundaries there as well. And I needed to get all of the check-ins done because they weren't done. Each and every one of your check-ins is done and you have it back. And that's my fault because I didn't set clear boundaries over the weekend where I had things that were happening and we had a lot of stuff happening, and that's okay. The point of it is to understand that when you set boundaries, if you don't respect them, other people won't respect them either. Now, why boundaries matter? Boundaries protect our emotional well-being. You have a certain percentage of battery for your day-to-day. You slowly get drained and drained and drained. That's why people say that they're drained by the end of the day. And if you allow people to violate those boundaries because you take phone calls at any time of the day, and when people say they need you, you show up for them, or when your boss tells you to stay overtime, even though you can't, you say yes, or when you know that you have to go to bed right now because you think you have to stay up late to write this college paper, or you have to finish this assignment, or you have to get this done. Deep down inside, you know that if you went to bed right now and you got good sleep, you could wake up tomorrow and you could get it done in a much better way because your battery's been refilled. So when we don't protect those boundaries, our emotional well-being suffer because now we're in this grind mode of thinking that we have to do everything all at once, and we don't. I see a lot of people here who have been in the program who are OGs, who've been here for a long time. You guys understand that some stuff has evolved in the program. There's more coaching calls. In my opinion, I don't know about you guys, give me a thumbs up for my OGs. If you've been here, they're getting better and better and better. I'm putting a lot more effort into it. Why? Because I've been better about my boundaries and I'm not just working throughout the clock all day, all the time on the business. I'm very intentional and I have 2 hours of deep work every single day where I do work on the business because I can focus. I can give you guys more if I'm being intentional with when I'm doing it. It helps us avoid burnout and resentment. If you are always available to other people in your life, even if it's your loved ones or even if it's friends, and they always reach out to you because they always need you, and you have become that person that's the go-to because we like to feel like we're useful, you're going to eventually resent them. Whether you consciously or subconsciously do it, you're going to eventually resent them. Because eventually you're going to realize that you are giving much more of yourself than they're giving to you because you know what? It's not even their fault. Because when you've reached out to them, maybe they have better boundaries in place and they've been able to say no because they're busy. But yet what we do is we overextend ourselves and we have problems setting boundaries. Believe it or not, setting boundaries is actually an act of self-love and self-respect. And other people will see that and they will learn something from you. Because all of us are here to teach, help, inspire, to be better for ourselves so we can be better for other people. Some of us have been out of the military for 10 years. Some of us have been out for 2 years. Some of us have still in. At the end of the day, we have to start identifying what some of the negative stuff from the military has been. One of those is having this propensity for over volunteering, for always giving ourselves because that's how we get value, because then we feel of service. And we have to understand that there's nothing wrong with being of service, but when you keep over committing yourself, your service kind of value becomes less and less and less because you're always available. And if you're always available, if you're always saying yes to every job, yes to every phone call, yes to every outing, yes to everything that happens in your life, your boundaries become less and less obvious, and then you don't even know where they're at. And boundaries apply everywhere in life. Are you willing to say yes to that freaking donut in the middle of lunch because you think a coworker is going to feel bad if you don't have it? That's a boundary. Are you willing to answer the phone late at night? Are you willing to put your phone on Do Not Disturb? Are you willing to say yes or no to the things in your life that actually matter to you? Recognizing boundary violations. There's several different signs. It includes feeling disrespected, overwhelmed with what's going on in life, or feeling like you're taken advantage of. And if these things are happening, it's not only on the person or the thing that's doing it to you, it's also on you because you're allowing it to happen. Because if you don't respect your boundaries, other people are not going to respect them. And we have to acknowledge these feelings, that it's the first step towards actually changing. So if you feel these things in your life, if you feel like you're not respecting your time, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, if you feel like you're always running low on time, it's because you are not setting clear and concise boundaries and you're not respecting them. And it's crucial to identify which boundaries are being crossed to address them specifically. Because if you are allowing your boundaries of your emotional well-being to be crossed because you go on all these different dates and you keep giving yourself to all these people and you don't protect your heart because you think that you need to find someone instead of realizing that when you work on yourself, you will attract the right partner, that's a boundary. If you end up working all this overtime, whether it's in your business or out of your business, at the end of the day, you can work effectively when you are recharged for the day instead of you thinking that you have to grind and hustle till 2 a.m. And then the next day, what happens? You're burnt out. You resent your business. You resent your boss. That's a boundary violation. Like, we have to understand. I see Eric shaking his head. Yes, that's a boundary violation. So we have to learn to set these boundaries. And one of the best ways to do that is by respecting your time and your emotions and your feelings. There's nothing wrong with being an emotional person or feelings, because when you're vulnerable, the truth comes out. So if you feel vulnerable and you feel like you don't get respect from certain people or certain things in your life, there's something there. And we have to establish clear boundaries. We have to identify what your core values are. Again, comes back to the core values and your non-negotiables. Communicate your boundaries clearly, calmly, and assertively. Remember, it's not about controlling others, but respecting yourself. I'm sure some of you have noticed you've reached out to me at 9 p.m. or 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. and I don't reply. I don't reply because I'm not going to set the negative boundary of me allowing you guys to access me at all times because I'm teaching you something negative. And that's something that is my fault because of the way that I didn't really have boundaries before. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, if it's an emergency, you need to get a hold of me, keep calling. But I also want to teach you guys that you have to set your own boundaries for yourself and you have to respect other people's boundaries. Because when you don't respect other people's boundaries and you keep calling or you keep trying to get something from someone and you don't, instead of you understanding that that person has boundaries, you feel disrespected. And it's not about you. It's about the other person having clear and concise boundaries and respecting them. And we have trouble understanding that because we have trouble with our own boundaries. So if we work on our boundaries, if we work on learning to say no, on not putting everything on our plate, on understanding that using our schedule and using our calendar and making sure that we put things on Monday when we're open or put things on Wednesday when we're open or move stuff around on Friday, that is boundaries. You guys all being here right now is a clear boundary because I'm sure there's something else that you can be doing. I'm sure there's loved ones that are waiting right next to you or having dinner with you, but yet here you are because this is a boundary that you have established that you are going to show up for the coaching calls because you know that there's value behind this. And when you share that with your people that you love, they understand it. They see you for it and they treat you better for it because now you are doing something that is important to you. Going to bed on time. That's a boundary. Establishing clear boundaries for yourself of what your rules are, what your non-negotiables are, what are your core values and your principles that you live by, you breathe by. It matters because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And we talked about this. You can't say that one of your core values is integrity if every other night you're staying up till 2 a.m, eating donuts, eating Oreos, watching a movie, watching porn, doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing at that hour, but yet you say that your core value is integrity. You're not operating from a place of integrity. And that's not to say that I don't want you to have those values if that's what you do. I want you to work on it specifically and have boundaries with yourself where you put your phone away. You set it on do not disturb. You set it on sleep mode. And that is a boundary that you respect because then other people will respect it as well. You shouldn't be able to be accessed 24/7. There is no emergency. There is nothing going on that anyone needs to be able to have access to you 24/7. I guarantee you that. And if they need to reach out to you, they call you multiple times. Is it really an emergency? We have to make sure that we respect our time because if we don't respect our time, nobody's going to respect it for us. Assertiveness and boundary setting. Assertiveness is expressing your thoughts and feelings respectfully. Practice saying no without feeling guilty. You don't have to give a reason. You don't have to explain yourself. Other people say no to you all the time, and then you feel hurt because you don't practice boundary setting yourself. Learn that saying no to someone or someone saying no to you has nothing to do with feelings, and it's about whether or not they have the bandwidth to do what you're asking, or do you have the bandwidth to do what they're asking? Assertive communication ensures your boundaries are understood and respected. It doesn't mean you tell someone F no. It just means, no, I don't have the time to do that right now. Because if you allow someone to mess with the boundary, let's just give an example here. It's Friday and you have a workout scheduled for 6 p.m. when you get off work, but someone wants to have lunch with you at noon, and it's someone that you really haven't seen in a while, and you don't really have an interest in seeing them, and you don't really care to spend time with them at that point in your life, because you know what? Maybe they just want to go and grab a beer with you, or they want to have lunch, or they just want to try this new restaurant and they want to spend time with you. And you can say no. Because by you saying yes, especially if it's not something that is a priority to you and you don't want to spend time with them, you are lowering your bandwidth that you have for that day. Because before you know it, you're going to go to lunch, and maybe you have a drink at lunch, or maybe you have something that you normally wouldn't eat instead of the salad that you pre-packed and you meal prepped. And then before you know it, it's 5:45 and you're still at work because you fell behind because you took a long lunch. And then before you know it, instead of driving to the gym, now you're driving home and you feel guilty about that. And then you go home and you have a beer or a glass of wine, all because you didn't respect your boundaries. There's nothing wrong with saying no. There's nothing wrong with understanding that this is a season of your life where you need to practice the word saying no, because practicing saying the word no is more about learning how to use the muscle of when to say yes. Because if you say no more often, when you say yes, it will be much more value given. And we've talked about this, the value given, value taken. All of these things tied together. So by the way, if you didn't watch the value given, value taken coaching call or the core values and principles coaching call, it's worth going back and watching. Because when you give value to yourself and to other people by learning that the moment you start saying yes less often, you become more valuable. Navigating pushback. Expect resistance, especially if it's your mom and you told her that, you can't come over this weekend, even though she wants to see the kids. Especially if it's a coworker that what you have always done with them is you always go and you try this new restaurant at lunch. Especially if it's a friend that, is used to you being the one that is always there to drive them around or do stuff with them. Expect resistance. It's a natural part of boundary setting. But you have to stay firm and be compassionate in your responses. You don't have to explain to them why. You just have to tell them, no, I can't do it. My schedule is full. Reiterate your boundaries as many times as necessary. And by the way, you can correct when people are trying to cross those boundaries. When you keep getting a phone call and it's 9 p.m. and it's not an emergency because they want to just talk about how the bachelorette or whatever did this, or it's a friend from the past that they just want to BS, or they want to complain about life, but they want to complain about their husband, but they don't do anything about it. You can send a message back, say, hey, I saw your phone call. Is everything okay? ? Is there an emergency? People will understand that, okay, this person can't call me back. And they're going to find somebody else to go ahead and violate that boundary with, but it won't be you. Or if it's your mom, you can very much calmly explain to her, Mom, I want my kids to eat healthier foods. So please do me a favor. This is the food that we're bringing for them to eat. And I want to make sure that we stick to this because it's very important to me. You don't have to say it in a rude way, but when you explain it the right way and you don't offend people, because you know that you can offend people if you say it the wrong way, it doesn't come off as you being aggressive. It comes off as you being considerate. It might help them with setting some boundaries. When you explain to a colleague that, listen, I would love to help you with your project, but unfortunately, I just don't have it right now. I'm working on this and I really have to get this done. This is important to me. They're going to understand that. The role of self-respect. Self-respect is a cornerstone of boundary setting. Valuing yourself sets the standard for how others should treat you. Cultivate self-respect by honoring your needs, feelings, and boundaries. We've talked about this. It's about self-respect because you're not doing it to hurt anybody. It's about helping yourself. Veterans and boundaries. Veterans, we face unique challenges in setting personal boundaries post-service. Why? Well, the military emphasizes very much readiness and the willingness to do anything at a moment's notice. We learn that. And we talked a lot about leveraging your service for the right reasons, but we don't talk enough about letting go of some of the things that no longer serve us. And I've been doing a lot more about this on social media. I've been posting a lot and people are getting butthurt about it, but you know what? That's okay. Because I understand that my boundaries are the fact that I am going to speak up for the things that I believe in. And I'm not going to stay silent. And when you do that, when you always give yourself in for whatever anybody needs, it can lead to valuing oneself based on the availability and the capacity to assist. So if you can't assist, if you can't help someone, somehow you start to think that you are not giving the value that you need. And that's just not true. You are still giving value. You just give it in a different way. You don't need to make yourself accessible 24/7. You can learn to say no. That is how society is. And you have to learn that now you are a part of society. You do not get your value of who you are from the fact that you always say yes to someone else. Understand that. We have to have boundaries in place. We don't need to say yes to everybody at all times. There is no emergency where nothing is going to bad happen. We're not in a war zone where we have to be always willing and available at a moment's notice. It doesn't exist anymore. Like, it just doesn't work that way. But we have to stop feeling like we are in a war zone. We are looking for peace. We are trying to create calmness for us. And until we let go of the negative things that the military taught us, we cannot move forward. Is this resonating with everybody? Is this hitting home? Can I get some thumbs up here? Thumbs down if it's not. Anybody? Let me see. All right, cool. Just making sure. Boundaries of compassion. So enforcing doesn't mean being harsh. It's about being consistent and clear. You can use I statements to express how boundary violations affect you. Thank people for respecting your boundaries to reinforce positive interactions. I don't have the time to do this right now because I'm working on getting my assignments done, right? You don't have to put somebody else down by making sure that you put yourself in the right place. The impact of boundaries on relationship. Healthy boundaries lead to healthier, more respectful relationships on both ends. It's to encourage mutual understanding and respect. I promise you that. Boundaries do create a safe space for genuine connection and trust, because when people start to learn that you are respecting your boundaries and you are learning where you can't and say no to people, it's going to help people learn that they need to work on their own boundaries. And how do we overcome that boundary guilt to feel like we're not there for people? Well, we feel guilty about setting boundaries, but it's common, but it's unproductive because it's just not true. It's a story that we're telling ourselves. Remember, setting boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary for your well-being, because if you are too stretched out, if you're stretched thin, you can't show up for yourself. And if you can't show up for yourself, you can't show up for other people. I don't care how you try and put it. You stretching yourself thin is actually hurting other people because you are not showing up for them. You're giving them what you think they need, when in truth, you need to take care of yourself so you can show up for the people in a much better way. Now, this is not to say that if there's an emergency in the middle of the night and your mom needs you or your dad needs you or your brother, your sister, it doesn't mean don't show up for them. It just means understand that there are things that are emergencies and there are things that are not emergencies. And slowly but surely, you will start to see a little bit more clarity in what is and what isn't, because you're going to practice boundary setting. And with time and practice, the guilt will diminish as self-respect grows. Conclusion in SF: setting boundaries is a powerful form of self-respect that teaches you or others how to treat us. Now, I want you guys to reflect on what you've learned today and identify one boundary to implement immediately. And that could be learning not to answer your phone every single time someone calls you, letting it go to voicemail, learning to put everything on your calendar so when someone says they need something from you on a random Wednesday, you don't just say yes, you check your calendar first. Learning that you don't have to go to your mom's house every single weekend, learning that you don't have to say yes to your buddy every single time they want to have a beer with you, learning that you don't have to spend 20 minutes on social media during lunch. You can have a boundary where you only spend 5 minutes, or maybe you don't go on social media at all during lunch. Learning that you eat your meal prep no matter what. Even if people want to have you eat something that they're eating, you can still bring your food with you. Remember, respecting yourself invites people to respect you as well. Q&A. Oh, there's homework. Hold on. We'll come back to your Q&A. So I want you guys to reflect on past instances where your boundaries were crossed. How did it make you feel? How could you respond differently in the future? Write down at least 3 to 5 top non-negotiables and practice communicating with a friend or in front of a mirror. Identify one boundary you will communicate this week. Plan the conversation, anticipate response, and decide on follow-up actions. So the way that works, screenshot this if you want to screenshot it. The way that this works is I want you guys to think about some areas in your life where you're not doing well with your boundaries. And that could be on your scheduling. That could be on a conversation with your boss. That could be a relationship. That could be your wife, your partner, your kids. Because you have to set boundaries with your kids as well. Because if you are always available to your kids and they always want to play with you, I understand it's so hard to say no. But if I always wanted to play with my kids when they wanted to play with me, I would be so burnt out all the time that I wouldn't be able to give them intentional time. So I have time on my calendar where I spend intentional time with my son and my daughter, and I take them out on field trips and we do stuff together. But I also have time where I spend with you guys. Like right now, this is boundary setting. So think about 5 areas and 5 non-negotiables, such as boundary setting within my calendar, my time on social media, my time with friends and family, my time to study, my time to work out. And then identify one boundary that you're going to communicate this week that you know it's an issue and plan the conversation. You don't have to share this in the group. I want this to be something that you guys do. But I do want you guys to share if it's successful in the group and talk about what came out of it. Because I guarantee you, it sounds a little bit scary, but it's not. Because boundary setting is something normal. Boundary setting is something that's healthy, something that we encourage. I don't want you guys to have all these negative boundaries. For example, another boundary could be spending all day in the group chat. It's developing the negative mindset of you feel like you always have to be in the group chat, in the Savage chat. Don't get me wrong. I love that you guys communicate and share. And I'm not saying that that's something bad. I'm just saying have boundaries for yourself as well in different areas of your life. Think about that. So everything that we talked about as far as boundaries, there's that right little balance area, right? Still having quality time with your family members, still making sure that you make time for yourself. It is about balance in this life. And you know that I don't typically use that word. But having boundaries helps you have portions of your life and everything that you're dedicating towards everything. For me, having balance in my life right now means having a larger portion of my day that I spend on you guys. Why? Because I'm growing this business and I'm growing this community and I'm making sure that you guys are fucking successful. To me, understanding that I'm going to spend less time watching TV, less time eating out, seeing friends for the next year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long it takes, I'm okay with that. To me, that is balance because I'm choosing what to do with my time. I'm choosing to have those boundaries in place. And you guys can have the same boundaries in place as well. So we're going to go ahead and stop the share there. And we're open up for Q&A if anybody wants to jump in. It's already 6:33, so let's try and limit it to about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm trying to be more deliberate with time, and I want to make sure I don't keep you guys too late on these Thriving Thursdays or master classes. But I hope you guys got some value. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and open up if anybody wants to ask anything or share anything.
What would you say the most difficult boundary has been to set for you? I put you right on the spot, huh?
Yeah, that's okay. I like that. The most difficult boundary for me, it's been all right, here we go. The most difficult boundary for me has be learning how to be a boss. I've been a team leader. I've been a scout sniper team leader. I've done a lot of leadership positions, but now that I am an employer and I have employees who are also family members, I don't know if you guys know that, but not only leading them, but giving them a clear vision of what is expected to do, what I want them to do, and how I want them to do it. Because I feel like I don't want to offend them. I feel like I want to make sure that they're happy with what they're doing. But me understanding that if I don't respect that boundary of this is what I expect of you and I want you to do it and follow through, and we have a clear system in place where we check in with each other and I don't overburden them, I don't have to stay up to 2 a.m. checking 150 messages on TikTok because that's what happens if I don't respect my boundary. And that boundary is like, okay, we're going to have check-ins. We're going to have group meetings. We're going to make sure that we follow through with these things that we check. I'm sure a lot of you got messages the past couple of days about whether or not you got your t-shirts. I didn't send that. My assistant did. And don't get me wrong, like I'm the one that sends almost all of the messages. But me having a system in place, which is a boundary of the fact that I made sure that these things get done, allows me to do this. Just can you imagine if I had to reply to 150 messages on TikTok all day? And by the way, I do have those conversations, but she starts them for me. And then I go in and I have the conversations. So don't get me wrong. Don't think that I'm not replying to you guys. It's me, but she will handle small little things that need to get done in order for me to not stay up to 2 a.m, in order for me to have these important master classes with you guys. Does all this make sense?
You bet. Relationships with my employees have been the most difficult for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it's about setting boundaries with them too and understand that they're going to get more out of it if they understand exactly what's expected of them instead of not having the knowledge of where that kind of hard line lies, right?
Yeah, and being tough on them when I need to be. That's the thing that I do the worst at. I'm brutal on myself most of the time, but then I'm too easy on the guys that work for me, and I end up doing their work.
I think
which is totally stupid.
I think a better way of positioning that, Eric, is not tough, because when we think of tough, we think of it's hard to do. It's just about having clear cut expectations. And when they're not met, finding the best way to make sure that you have check-ins in place. Make sure you have a system to ensure that it does get met. because when you can catch stuff early and when you have systems in place, you don't have to be the tough love person. You can just be the one that holds them accountable by having these systems in place. And if it triggers this second alarm of, okay, it's been 3 days and I haven't received word back, I can check in with them before it gets to day 5, and then I have to be the tough love person. Very happy to see Vanessa on here, by the way. Cheyenne, Tashi, we got Jenny, we got Savannah, we got Carlos, we got Roberto. Jason, love seeing you here, brother. How's everybody? Anybody listen to the podcast?
I was there when it happened.
No, the one I just recorded. I have my own podcast now.
Oh, I didn't check it out. I'm not really on podcasts, but I probably should.
I followed it, I reviewed it, and I saved it. So I've got to listen to it on the car ride.
Appreciate it. I'm going to be releasing 2 to 3. Did you?
I did.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate
I'm
that.
2 episodes behind, but I left you a review.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I'm a little surprised with the views because I didn't think it'd be as many as it is, and it's doing really well. And I appreciate you guys doing the review and watching. It's been awesome, and I'm gonna try and do 3 a week. And eventually, I'd love to have you guys on as guests as well. I just gotta figure it out. Again, I took messy action. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just did it. So
That's good.
anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Did this sink in? Do you guys feel like you got value out of today?
I always write everything you say down.
Love that. Now we got to take action.
You're right. I feel like when it comes to like setting boundaries, I kind of haven't really been setting it with myself. Like I've been really hard on myself, but I guess because I want to do better. But like about me like getting a job and stuff, but I have an interview, another interview tomorrow, but they kind of went with me through the next step in Cracker Barrel, so that's good.
Good. So setting boundaries is being hard on yourself because it's easy to not set boundaries. It's easy to just go by and like think that you have to grind all the time and you have to just do whatever you can whenever you can. But setting boundaries is you being hard on yourself because you're telling yourself that you're going to follow certain rules. You're telling yourself that you're going to make sure you follow the guidelines that you're giving yourself of what you're going to allow yourself to do or not to do. Right?
Exactly.
Like after tonight at 7 p.m., I am going to shut down for Vet Rise Academy. And I'm not going to be responding to you guys, but tomorrow I'm going to set an hour to an hour and a half where I'm responding to everybody. If anyone needs anything, another boundary is like, I'm going to make sure that like the check-ins get done, and they were not done the way I wanted them to this week. That's why I took a day off of work today. I dropped my time at work to get all the check-ins done because it was bothering me. Right. And that's something that I decided to do because I didn't follow my own boundaries. This weekend was very busy. I mean, we had a lot of people starting. We got Cole, who's somewhere, I think he's right here next to me. He was starting, and I had a chance to have all these people on. It was great. I loved it. We got Chut started. Who else? We got Conroy started. Who else is here? And we had a lot of people starting, and I loved that I was able to do that. But then on Saturday and Sunday, I didn't set my own boundaries where I didn't get the check-ins done like I freaking said I would. So that bothers me. So I made the adjustments, and this is me being hard on myself, making sure that I find time to do it. So that's to say, like, you being hard on yourself is you respecting your time and setting boundaries, right?
Exactly. And I've been literally doing school VA stuff and then applying for jobs. Like as soon as I wake up in the morning, like 2 hours out of my day, I'm just doing that.
Good. And then
But
letting
that's
go
all.
when you're done.
But yeah, I thought it was great. I'm gonna hop off and enjoy my dinner.
Everybody, we're gonna hop off here. Thank you guys for joining. If you need anything, stay around for a little bit. But if not, you feel free to leave. I'm gonna stop the recording. I love you guys. Thank you all for showing up. Take care. Cole, I'm happy to see you here. Conroy, Chuck, Eric, Cheyenne, Savannah, Roberto, Carlos, Jenny. Who else? I think Lisa was here at one point. I think she might still be here. That might be Lisa in the top right.
You can do it.
All right, guys. Adios. I'm gonna stick around. There she is. I'm gonna stick around if you have anything. I'll go ahead and stop the recording. You guys are amazing.